This is a highly unmet medical need for women. I think there's something like 90 million women around the world who are suffering from endometriosis. And we hope that by looking at certepetide in combination with a VEGF inhibitor, that in this initial preclinical model, that we'll be able to generate sufficient data and interest to move into human clinical testing.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Lisata Therapeutics CEO David Mazzo. David, very good to speak with you again. You're up to your quarterly results and a business update this week, and it looks like you continue to make significant enhancements across your clinical portfolio over the period.
That is correct, Stephen, and thank you again for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. We are making significant advancements, and I think it's notable given that we remain a small team, but really have impeccable execution. To summarize across our portfolio, I think most people know that we are waiting for what will be considered seminal data for our pancreatic cancer program coming out of the phase 2b ASCEND trial. And we expect that data, that top-line data, to be available in the coming month or so. That should be very interesting. We've announced that the sponsor of that trial, who's our partner, the Australasian Gastrointestinal Testing Group, clinical trialists organization out of Australia, has applied for and had an abstract accepted with the preliminary top-line data from cohort A to be presented at ASCO GI in mid-January in San Francisco. So we'll be looking forward to seeing that become public. And of course, the cohort B data is maturing as we speak. We've made great progress in our cholangiocarcinoma trial. First-line cholangiocarcinoma, the BOLSTER trial, has been enrolled for some time now. It enrolled at extremely rapid rate. And we have initiated a second-line cholangiocarcinoma trial, which is complementary to the first line and is now enrolling at a planned rate, which is very important. Our collaboration with Warp9 Foundation in Australia on the ILSTA trial, which is the first trial looking at the combination of cytotoxics and immunotherapy in non-resectable, locally advanced pancreatic cancer, is almost completed in its enrollment, and we'll have some preliminary data to talk about there. There's also an abstract at ASCO GI for that trial, and a number of other ancillary trials are moving forward as planned. So we're quite happy with the progress that the team is making overall.
And you also ended the quarter with almost $36 million in cash and cash equivalents. So a strong cash runway as you progress these trials, David.
That is absolutely correct, Stephen, and a much stronger cash runway than many other small companies. Certainly, it confirms our continued assertions that we have cash into early 2026 and the ability to reach a data milestone for all of the trials that we've discussed and that are listed on our website as being active. So we're very pleased about that. One frustration, though, that comes along with that is, like many other small companies, we continue to not be recognized for the value that we think we've created. We continue to trade below our cash value, which is really, I think, frustrating and to some extent misleading to potential investors. We have a very strong set of fundamentals, operational excellence. We have been noted for capital, conservation and good capital stewardship. And so I think, overall, as data emerges, we expect the company's valuation to increase significantly to be more reflective of what we believe the true value of our programs are.
David, you mentioned a couple of collaborations when we started chatting. You announced another one this week, though. That was with Valo Therapeutics in Finland. And you also have one with the University of Cincinnati. Could you take us through those and the rationale for those collaborations?
Certainly. These are both important collaborations because they continue to work toward the broadening of the applicability of certepetide in a variety of different indications. With Valo Therapeutics, they have an oncolytic virus platform that we believe will have a complementary mechanism of action to certepetide. And they have a very interesting and validated mouse model for melanoma in which they've demonstrated efficacy of their compound. We'll be testing the combination of their product and certepetide in that model with the hope of gaining sufficient information to then move into human testing in melanoma, which remains a very large unmet medical need. This is clearly for metastatic melanoma. And then the University of Cincinnati collaboration is quite interesting because it's our first foray into an indication which is outside of oncology. We've chosen endometriosis because the endometriatic, excuse me, I can't say that word very clearly, tissue behaves very much like a tumor. It is angiogenic in its nature, which means it forms blood vessels and steals nutrients from the surrounding tissues. And it also expresses the same receptors, specifically the integrins and neuropilin-1, that are necessary for certepetide's mechanism of action to work, but are also expressed on many solid tumors. So this is a highly unmet medical need for women. I think there's something like 90 million women around the world who are suffering from endometriosis, extreme pain, infertility, bleeding, other complications. And we hope that by looking at certepetide in combination with a VEGF inhibitor, that in this initial preclinical model, that we'll be able to generate sufficient data and interest to move into human clinical testing in that. So that's very important. First non-oncology indication. And we have, hopefully in the next several weeks, the opportunity to make announcement of another collaboration in a non-oncology indication. So we're seeing the interest grow in the ability of certepetide to do many things beyond treating solid tumors. And I think we're very excited about that. By the way, data from the University of Cincinnati collaboration and the Valo collaboration are expected in the early part of 2025.
David, what's other news flow should your investors be looking out for?
Well, I think, generally speaking, as I kind of alluded to, we hope to be announcing some commercial type collaborations in non-oncology indications in the coming months. That'll be very interesting for us, as well as some additional collaborations as it relates to other non-oncology and oncology indications. We'll also be looking for the data from these various preclinical as well as all the clinical studies unfolding during the course of 2025. And as they unfold, the opportunity for more business deals to arise. So you should be able to go to our website, look at the corporate presentation, and see the slide that lays out all of the execution and data milestones over the course of the next roughly 12 to 15 months. And you'll see it's a very data-rich time period into which we are entering.
I'm sure we're going to be having lots more conversations in that case, David. Thank you very much for the update today.
Looking forward to talking to you again, Stephen. Be well. Cheers.
And you, Lisata Therapeutics CEO, David Mazzo.